Gragert. I'm by the speaker, so I'm making a lot of noise. And we asked these people to come in yesterday, and they flew in, just picked them up off the chopper. And they're here to address any concerns or talk about whatever we need to talk about. So, Pete, you want to? I'm not very good with the mic.
That's okay. It's probably up behind the flag. All right.
Yeah, so everybody can see.
All right. Actually, tell you what. Can we all rise and maybe start with the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, give me a moment. Just get up there. You guys want to come down? So first of all, I want to thank all of the first responders, law enforcement officers, volunteers, Jody, everybody that you got on your team that is working so hard to help take care of people and keep them safe through this flood experience we got. This is probably the worst, most widespread flooding damage we've had in our state in at least a half a century. And right now, we are still seeing high water flows in significant parts of the state. So I don't know if you all have been following along other parts of the state, but we've got a number of communities that are isolated. We've got a number of shelters open across the state. I think we got 18 shelters across the state right now. Over 800 people are in those shelters. We've got 51 cities and 52 counties that have asked for emergency declarations to be able to deal with this. Right now, just to give you an idea of the volume of water that is coming out, is the Army Corps of Engineers has shut down all the upstream flow of the Missouri coming in at Fort Randall. And that means that all the water in the Missouri River right now is coming from Niobrara and all the other uncontrolled tributaries that are flowing into it. And right now, Gavin's Point Dam is releasing about 90,000 cubic square foot of water a second just to keep up with the water that's flowing into it. So this is a lot of water that's coming in, and that's in a very short period of time, which is what we have seen not only here, but in all northeast Nebraska. And now that water is going to be moving through the Missouri River and down toward southeast Nebraska. So we expect, we've already got people that we're asking to evacuate in Sarpy County and further south to get away from the Missouri River and the Platte River because we've got so much water coming in. Yesterday, I was touring. We flew to Norfolk along the Platte and Loop rivers. Sometimes you couldn't even tell where the channel was in the Platte. When we flew back along the Elkhorn, it looked like the Missouri River. Same deal. Sometimes you couldn't even tell where the channel was. We saw levees that have been broken. We've seen bridges. I know you've all had that experience here as well. Bridges that are out. We saw livestock that was either stranded, or we've also know that there's a lot of livestock losses. Also with calving, it's probably been the worst calving that anybody can remember, for the weather and loss of calves. So this really is something that will not only just be the immediate issues we have today, but will have long-going impact as we replace infrastructure. There's been a tremendous number of homes that have been damaged or destroyed. As those people recover, agriculture, obviously we have to wait and see how long this water takes to run off, but we know that in the livestock industry, we're going to have a lot of losses there. We're going to have a lot of farmers may not be able to get back into the field for some time. So this is going to be something that's going to have long-lasting impacts as well. So we want you to know that, I declared an emergency on Tuesday to start the state officials working with the local county officials. So we stood up the Emergency Management Center. We've been operating that 24 hours a day to be able to coordinate with local officials with regard to the types of resources. The National Guard has made a number of rescues and continues to work on different missions. We're talking about other missions with regard to how to supply communities with the basic necessities they need. So we've got a lot of different operations going on right now. at the end of the day, what it really revolves around is making sure that we get the information from you all with regard to what your needs are and what resources you need and what priorities those are, so that we can work with our state officials to be able to deliver on those. We know there's going to be a lot of issues with regard to infrastructure and roads. We're going to have to evaluate that. I did talk to President Trump yesterday to tell him about the disaster that we've got going on here, and we're going to work closely with the federal administration with regard to getting that federal emergency declaration so that we can start getting those federal resources. And our Department of Transportation has already reached out to the U.S. Highway to start working on getting some of their emergency funds with regard to our roads. We want to get some of those federal resources here quickly to help us assess and be able to assess this with regard to getting that declaration in so we can start tapping into those federal dollars to be able to start doing the recovery. So there's going to be a lot of things going on here. We got a lot of work left to do, but we really appreciate all the local folks, the emergency responders, the law enforcement, volunteers, everybody who has been pitching in to help take care of their neighbors here. It really is what it means to be the spirit of Nebraska, and so we're very grateful for all that. So with that, Senator Gragert, did you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to talk and tell everybody that that's the reports I'm getting all the way up to the Lincoln is the local people, our emergency responders, our fire departments, our police. Laura has been doing an excellent job here locally. Now we'll just have to step up. We went through the initial part of it. We'll have to step up, make sure the state understands what we need out here, and some of the biggest thing we need to address right now and continue to address are the roads and bridges. I have had reports from our sheriff here, Don Henry, and a couple of the supervisors, Pat Liska, Miller, Virgil Miller. I really appreciate him taking and getting on that Fisherville Bridge, and there's a couple other shout outs to Kirk Nielsen and Jeff Bakach for out there. They're probably out there as we speak today trying to get that Fisherville Bridge cleared up. But there's a lot of, I understand we lost a couple state bridges, and be assured those will be looked at and worked also. Biggest thing we need to do in our communities now, I visited with, if not all, most of our communities throughout the district. I have to tell you, I'm probably standing in one of the worst of the communities of all the phone calls I made yesterday. And we know that, and we're on top of that. We'll continue, but we definitely need to have you people, as far as if you got an issue, come up through your local community leaders to Laura Hintz, our emergency manager, and we'll get it up to NEMA and get state resources out here as best we can. Some of the things that I've been hearing, and of course the top two are these roads and bridges so we can get around, but then the next thing is water, and I understand your water situation here in Niobrara mainly. And the other, probably the next worst one is Lynch, which we plan on taking and flying up the river here and stopping in Lynch and visiting with those people also. But yeah, I just can't stress enough. Let's keep this safe. Don't drive on any roads covered with water. The bridge may still be there, but the approach, as a lot of you already know, they're gone. So let's just stay safe on this. Take a breath, and we'll work this through and get through this. Other than that, I guess that's it. But please, I guess my phone number in Lincoln is 402-471-2801. Day or night, give me a call. Laura's been doing an excellent job, but I'm another resource, and I want you to use me. Thank you. Senator Sasse.
Thank you. I'll just add two real brief comments. The first is Governor Ricketts, as he said, has been in touch with President Trump last night. I've also had multiple calls with the President and with Vice President Pence over the last 48 hours, and they're really impressed with Governor Ricketts and with our state's leadership overall. And so as we look to tap those federal funds down the road, there's a lot of dialogue going on between the governor's office and my team and the President. So there's a lot of attention being paid. The second thing I would say is it is pretty amazing, even in the midst of a horrible situation like this, to be in community after community in Nebraska and see neighbor helping neighbor. At our last stop about an hour and a half ago in Fremont, we met a woman named Brenda whose house had been washed away yesterday. She lived south of Fremont along the north banks of the Platte, and her house had been washed away. When she and her kids got to the shelter at First Lutheran Church in Fremont, she insisted that they wanted to be in the volunteer line, not the needs support line. She said, our house is already gone, our bodies are fine, we don't need any stuff, we want to figure out how we can love our neighbor. And everywhere we go in Nebraska, that's the kind of story we hear. So I just want to say thank you for the ways you're inspiring lots of people and the way you love each other.
A few words. Oh, excuse me.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Toom. I'm the Assistant Director for the Nebraska Emergency Management Agency, and we are operating the State Emergency Operations Center in Lincoln. We have staffed it with all of our emergency support function coordinators from state government and our stakeholder agencies. So one comment I would make, and I think it's been stated in a variety of manners already, but when you look at the magnitude of the event that's impacted Nebraska over the last week, blizzards out in the Panhandle, the snow melt, the influx of more moisture, and all the flooding that has occurred throughout the state, the number of calls and requests for assistance that have been coming to NEMA in proportion have been relatively low in my estimation. So I look at that, and my takeaway is that it's the local folks that are taking care of the needs of their community, the local first responders, the emergency managers, and others who are pooling resources and reacting to the situation and really taking care of most of the issues themselves, and then asking us to step in where they don't have the capacity or the capability to address specific issues. So have been in touch with Laura Hintz on your water issue. I understand the Department of Health and Human Services has been working with their water people to try and work through that issue with you, and I know we've got potable water supplies here. We will continue to monitor that situation, and our offer is if you need more assistance or you need help with any specific issues, please let us know. The governor touched on the emergency declaration process. So one of the things that we will be working on, in fact, we're working on it already. We have staff that are putting together the narrative for the federal emergency declaration. We are going to request a federal emergency declaration, and we're going to specifically request for some assistance to come out and engage the local communities across the state to survey damage and try to jumpstart the process, so to speak, so that we can work on getting a public assistance declaration, and then we will have to evaluate whether or not we can qualify for individual assistance, but those are all issues that we'll be evaluating over the next several days and putting that information together for the governor and ultimately getting that to FEMA and the president. There may be some questions afterwards, and I'll certainly be available to try and answer any of those to come up. General Bowhead.
Well, Major General Darrell Bohack, the head of the National Guard, and just to share a little bit about what we've been doing in conjunction with Nebraska Emergency Management Agency, we run everything out of the State Emergency Operations Center, as Brian said, and that's where all your requests come into, and we prioritize and identify the best resource against the requirement. One of the things we've been doing, not in this area as much, but definitely further downstream, Fremont, Columbus, Arlington, and Waterloo areas, is doing hoist rescues with helicopters. And we've, in the last 2 days, extracted 99 people and 11 dogs. There are some people who refuse to leave because we can't get their dogs out because they're too big or not cooperative, and we worry about those folks. But so that's just one aspect of what we're doing. We're also looking at bringing in commodities and other items to areas that are isolated that the governor talked about. So, for example, Fremont right now, all the road access to Fremont is closed due to flooding. And I'm going to channel Director Schneewes here from Director of Transportation, which is to say, even though the waters are receding in areas, we don't know the structural integrity of some of the structures. So even if the water's gone and the barricades are still up. Please don't go around the barricades if you're driving around, and put yourself at risk, and then for the potential to be put yourself in danger. We have one known fatality in the state because of someone who was trying to do the right thing and rescue somebody that was on top of their vehicle, but they got swept away. Their tractor flipped over as they entered the floodwaters, and that person was swept away. We have two other folks that are missing who also entered floodwaters, and their vehicle was swept away. So please, if you're entering into those areas, please do not do that, and turn around and don't drown. We ask you of that. Other kinds of things as we move into this over time, we're doing some operations down in the Lincoln area to do some sandbagging around the Lincoln well fields. The wells there are being threatened, and so the water supply just is not like you're experiencing, but is being threatened. Yours is cut off. And so we will continue to work those kinds of issues as we can, and put the priorities where we can. But and repeat again through Laura, please up-channel your needs and requirements so we can try to help and be an assist to your communities and be good neighbors for the state. So, Mayor, would you like to share a few words with your community?
Yeah, I just want to thank all you guys for being here. I think it means a lot to everybody in the community, especially me. I'm getting a little choked up, but we got a long road ahead of us. There's a lot of stuff, but I did ask a few other people to say a few words. I know there's maybe Steve Tiki, Doug Potoshnik, they maybe just want to address a little bit from the communication side, just address so you guys can have it. Tony Tisharon, are you here as well?
It's over there.
Tony, you want to say a few words?
While he's coming up, I just wanted to point out one quick thing. We all know about 911. We all know about 511 calling as far as getting road reports. But there is a new number out there that I just became across, and maybe you haven't heard about, but it's called 211. And not only for this situation, but any situation you may be in, if you need some help in any way, it's a free service. Call into 211, and the service there will put you in contact with the proper people if you need legal aid or whatever kind of thing you may need. So keep that in mind, and as we go on and this goes on, that's a good resource to know, 211.
And as long as we're talking about those kind of resources as well, I think, Tim, you mentioned it, 511, if you're looking for road conditions, is the best place to do that. The app is probably the best way to do that because the phone lines are starting to get a little overwhelmed, or you can go online at 511.nebraska.gov. And then if you need to contact the State Patrol, that's star 55, star 55. And of course, if you've got an emergency, as Tim said, 911.
Thanks, guys. Tony Tisharon is going to give a little update on where we're at, possibly with the roads.
I think most of you know we have a superintendent for the Department of Transportation. When I got the first call at 4:30 Wednesday morning, I had no idea that I'd had 4 hours of sleep since then. This is just, there's no words for it. The one thing I want to say is, I'm going to say several things, but the one thing is we have to be thankful because we are all here. And that's the most important thing. We can replace a lot of things, but we can't replace ourselves. Next, I want to just thank everybody for your support, and I'm not going to be able to name all of them, but fire department's been there for us, not just this fire department, every fire department in the 5 counties that I'm in charge of. At one point, I had 27 spots in the 5 county area with water over the road, and we had nobody left. I started making calls to all local sheriff departments to page out fire. We had fire doing traffic control. We had EMTs doing traffic control, and we got through until yesterday. We had one of our guys got hit. He turned out okay. He's fine, but it's been a mess. But I just want to make sure everybody knows that I'm really thankful for your support. It's been overwhelming, the stuff's been said about myself and my guys on social media. Dang it, I didn't want to go there.
Well, I started.
Yeah. As far as the roads, guys, we're still assessing the damage. Time frame is, I'll turn that over to Kevin, but we have no idea. It is way worse than we anticipated. But I think you guys know us. You know me, you guys know my crews. We're gonna do everything we can to get you guys up and running and just continue to, we've turned a lot of people around that wanna come and look at stuff, and people are starting to get upset, but please be patient with us. Let us have a room. We're gonna do everything we can to keep everything open for emergency purpose. We're gonna get your guys' mail in here. We're gonna get you the goods you need. Anything we can do, we're gonna get them in here to town. I think, Kevin, do you want to add anything?
No, I think you covered it all.
Okay, well, you guys know I was born and raised here, and for 22 years I've been working on these roads. We've been through one flood, and this community's going to get through another one, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. I got the Great Plains folks here. They want to just say a little word on the communication lines.
We're here in support of not only Niobrara, but we have several other communities throughout this part of the state and other states that are being affected with this flood. So I guess our biggest thing here in Niobrara is we lost major lines going west across the river, which pretty much have isolated everybody on the other side of the river. We're looking at options to get that remedy. Other than that, I mean, you know, everyone's going to have phone service problems and TV problems and internet problems. And what we ask you to do is, you know, communicate that back to the Blair office. Right now, we're all kind of surprised at the amount of troubles we're not receiving, and I think that's because people have other important things to worry about. But please communicate that back to our home office. Our number one priority is keeping the guys safe. So, you know, it may be a while before we get there. They're not going to travel down any roads that are covered with water. They're not going to travel down any roads that look compromised, because if we lose them, it's not going to do us any good. So please communicate back to the home office. Be patient. We're going to do everything we can. We're prioritizing our problems and going through that process. And like I said, the biggest one in this area is going to be going west. So you'll see guys in town working on that. So like I said, communicate back to the home office and please be patient. Thanks.
Steve, you got a few words, or you put you on the spot? Are you good?
Okay. As you guys know, I take care of a lot of the communications around the areas, not only Niobrara, Santee, Verdigris. And like Doug said, we're just doing our best to keep everything going. If we don't know stuff is out, you have to let us know. I mean, it's the only way we can fix it. They just, everybody we see was like, well, we just thought you figured it was out. That's not the case. A lot of people that rely on their landlines yet, even though cell phones are very popular. People out west, a lot of them don't have electricity yet. They can't charge up their cell phones unless maybe they do it off a car charger or something. I mean, there's a lot of people out there are hurting units in a lot of different ways and aspects. And safety issues are the biggest issues. You see these state guys, the only thing you need to tell them is thank you, be safe. Just anybody out there trying to get the water going, anything. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Steve.
Be safe, everybody.
I do have a few more people that want to talk, but I think with essence of time, we have these leaders here probably for another.
You want to take a few more questions too?
Yeah, let's, if anybody has any comments, questions, concerns they want to address to any of these gentlemen, now would be the time while we got them here. So please speak up if you have anything.
Are you going to declare that a disaster down there? We're done. I mean, everything got wiped.
They're a business owner down below the town there that was completely wiped out with the flooding and ice. Vic and Ruth Yannick, and I guess Cafe, and we got Nielsen's. We had 3 businesses completely wiped out.
Yep, so part of what we're going to be doing, and Brian, I'm going to let you speak about this a little bit more in depth. So part of what we're going to be doing, again, it's your local folks that declare the county or declare the county emergencies. That all feeds up to the state. Then we pool that together as we then do our federal disaster declaration. Primarily, or at least where that starts, is around infrastructure. Public service, roads, utilities, bridges, that sort of thing. However, I think that we're also going to be in a position to be able to to assist with private damages and private help as well. And Brian, I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about that because you're the expert.
Okay, a number of options exist. So as the governor mentioned, there was a state emergency declaration filed last Tuesday. So local jurisdictions, primarily the counties and the cities, are submitting emergency declarations as well. That's a part of the process that we have to follow to document and then have folks qualify for any federal assistance. So our staff at Lincoln at the State Emergency Operations Centers, they're collecting that information as it comes in once they're filed by the local officials. Right now, I believe we're well over 55 counties across the state and somewhere in the vicinity of about 50 cities that have issued emergency declarations. So that process is going on. The other issue that we're going to be working on is the emergency declaration with the federal folks. And we've been in touch with them. They know our status. They're standing by, ready to help. They can bring federal assets in here if we need it, if we request it. But the other issue is we're embarking on that effort to get the federal assistance, the recovery programs into the state of Nebraska. So primarily we deal with public assistance. Public assistance is to rebuild public infrastructure. So we have a $2.7 million threshold in damages to qualify for a federal disaster declaration. I normally don't go out on a limb and say this, but I think we're there. We've been there we've exceeded that threshold a long time ago. The Federal Highway Administration will be addressing most of the issues on the state and federal highway system. Local county roads, we've seen it from the air. The damage is just devastating. So in order to qualify for any federal assistance for those roads, we have to go out and do damage assessments. And obviously we got to wait just a little bit until we can get out there and actually do the assessments. Our goal is to get a federal emergency declaration filed so that we can get those federal folks up here to help us jumpstart that damage assessment process. Normally, in most cases, we wait about 30 days to do that, or we have 30-day window at the end of the event and 30 days later to have a letter signed by the governor that goes to the president requesting a federal disaster declaration. We're going to do everything we can on our end and work with Governor Ricketts and our federal officials to jumpstart that process. There are other options available for individuals. So one of those programs that we typically look at for homeowners that may be underinsured and small businesses that have, they need capital to jumpstart their business and repair it. The Small Business Administration will be in here. As soon as we can get them in here, they'll come around, they will start doing assessments, and they'll identify which counties, which areas will qualify for the Small Business Administration loan process. They'll come into your communities, they'll set up shop, they'll take information, they'll go through the effort to get your application processed. And so that will be another avenue for recovery for individuals.
What should business owners do to prepare for it?
So one of the things business owners will need to do is make sure you document what insurance coverage you have. So you may have insurance, but you may be underinsured. So those are things that we have to look at. And those are the questions they'll ask. They will want to know what kind of insurance you have, and then they'll start asking questions about the type of business and what were your losses. You need to document those. And I'll be very honest, I don't think it's a very intensive process. Everybody that I've talked to who's ever gone through that, really it's not what I would call labor intensive or very painful. They just simply need to document some information and then process the application.
So Brian, do you have a time frame for when? Do you have a time frame for when? So for example, if you're a business that has had a loss, say your building got washed away, You've got to document the type of insurance you had. You have to document your total losses. Do you have a time frame when you think that the federal officials might be here to start taking those applications?
So what we will do is we'll work with the local officials, and they'll help us get the Small Business Administration folks into the communities, and then they will do the assessments. Quite honestly, our thresholds are, they're there. So I don't anticipate a lot of time spent on doing that assessment phase. Then the Small Business Administration simply declares an SBA disaster, and then people qualify, and then they will make arrangements with all the communities that have been impacted. They will come to the community. They will set up a shop or set up a location where folks can come in, make their application, and then those get turned around in fairly short order. It's not a very time-intensive process, but if you can come in and bring your documentation with you, your personal information, your insurance information, and document your damages, that will help you get your loan process quicker.
When do you think that SBA people might be?
We've been in touch with them since last Tuesday. They are waiting, standing by. Quite honestly, now that the conditions are starting to improve, we will make that phone call, and we will probably have them out here next week, or sometime between mid to the end of next week. They come out of Sacramento, California.
What does an uninsured homeowner or underinsured homeowner do?
So again, you'll have to verify what type of insurance coverage you have, or if you have none, and then their rules for qualifying. I think you're supposed to be 40% underinsured. We've worked with them on a number of disasters, and I'll just simply say this: they have some latitude to adjust those requirements for the benefit of our communities, for the citizens, so that they can get the assistance in here that they need. So they're fairly easy to work with. We've not found them to be very difficult. They want to come in, they want to help, and they're very expeditious in terms of coming in, getting the information, turning it around, and getting folks their loans.
What about the people that have lost livestock?
Okay, that's another issue. So we've already been in touch with the United States Department of Agriculture. The Secretary of Agriculture does have the authority to issue disaster declarations, and then that opens up a process where folks can get low interest loans or other recovery program dollars. And we have already been in touch with our Nebraska Department of Agriculture. They've been in touch with the USDA officials. So again, that effort is underway. Yes, and it addresses livestock producers and farmers, the ag sector. If they're impacted, that declaration is designed to assist the ag sector recover.
Well, how about they have insurance and they'll cover anything, like I think all three businesses down there have.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
I said we all have insurance down there, but it doesn't cover flooding at all. We're all in the same boat down there. What the hell are we supposed to do?
Okay, those are going to be some of the questions that you're going to have to review with folks when they come.
I don't think any of us want to be taking out loans at our age, so I think you're just wiping out three businesses down there. So is there any help from FEMA at all? Will they come in and help us?
FEMA does have individual assistance, and we have had only one event in Nebraska where we ever qualified for the individual assistance program, and that was the 2011 floods.
Wow, guess what? We went through that too in January of 2011. Did we get any help there? No, but thank God we had a building lapse. This time, we don't have a building lapse. We have thousands and thousands of dollars of inventory that went down the Missouri River. And you say, oh, go ahead, take out a loan. Whoop-de-doo.
Well, again, we will work within the system with regard to that and see what programs are available at the federal level to be able to accomplish that. But the programs are out there. We'll have to go through this process, and that means documenting everything that you've lost. So if you've lost inventory or anything like that, again, just as Brian was saying, come with your insurance, come with that. And certainly, part of that also is making sure that information gets worked up to NEMA through your local emergency manager so that we know about those cases and can make sure we put a highlight on that when we're talking with the federal officials to find out what programs there might be available. And then that'll work back down again through your emergency manager. We'll make sure they're aware of what kind of things are going on with regard to what the federal assistance will do. And, obviously if there's programs out there, we'll work very hard to be able to access those programs. But again, we got to live within whatever the rules the federal government has with regard to that. So, we're still kind of early. We're still really focused right now on the response phase when we still do have people who are, cut off, who are in shelters and that sort of thing. We certainly will be moving into a more recovery phase as we get the water out of our state and start working on what the assessment is. But that's where, again, we need all of you with regard to the damages you have, just to keep track of all that so that we can know and do the best job we can to be able to access what sort of resources there may be available from the federal government through the emergency declaration. And that includes not only the businesses, but livestock and everything else.
Do you have any idea of how soon they'll fix the state roads that come to Niobrara? That's what really affects the town right now.
Yeah, so with regard to that, I don't know that we have a timeline right now. And you guys want to take it? Anybody in the roads people want to try and take a shot at that? I know right now we're still, part of the problem is
we got Tony for Sharon. Can you address a little Tony or?
Yeah, part of it is we're still doing. We can't even do the assessment yet in some places because we can't even get access to the roads.
I think I was out there with Tony and Ray and some of the department officials this morning. The biggest thing, the water is going to have to come down before they can give an assessment. Diane, I don't know a good timeline either. Their heads are spinning as well. They're frustrated too, but I don't know, maybe Tony, you can comment a little bit. That's kind of what I think out of it.
The only thing I can say now is we're having problems with the bridge south of town because it's just plain old. We're working on it right now. We're going to be able to keep open to South Dakota. So the best thing I can say is now I hope they have two ways out of this town. As far as west, I have no idea. It's all, we're contacting the resources. We have people coming up to look today about east. We're doing everything we can, but we have zero of a timeline as far as east and west. We're going to do everything we can.
Okay, how are your guys' time? Tim, Pete? We got time for one or two more questions, and we got to get these guys on the road. So anything else that anybody?
10 miles to the west of here, there's a bridge. How are they going to get their mail? Because their mail comes through here.
The mail, is Sheila here? Did you have a little bit on, she was in contact with the postal service here, just maybe she could, a brief update on that maybe?
Well, the mail truck was in town today, but that doesn't mean it's going west. But their statement was that because of the inclement weather, the roads can change daily or even by the minutes, and they will evaluate the situation daily to get the mail out and see what they can do.
Yeah, I don't know. Tim, you got any?
Only one thing I'd want to say is if, for the mail, we need to back ourselves up as far as any bills so we don't get into situations where, my bill there, my check didn't make it there. So we want to try to cut that off. So if that's going to be a concern of yours right away, be sure you're pushing all this stuff up. And I got to reiterate, don't wait for somebody to show up to your door. You need to start putting together your claims even today and be ready so when they hit your door or you get to them, that won't hold up the process any longer, a day or two. So the faster you can collect your paperwork, the better off you'll be when you're working with this.
Jody, can you address on the water lines in town?
Yeah, the water line situation, I guess just real quickly. status. I'll have Rich come up and talk about. Let's finish up with these guys first because they need to get on the road. Do we have any final questions for the gentleman up here today? And then we can continue on with our meeting. Okay. A few final words from the governor.
Again, folks, well, hey, thank you very much for all that you've been doing. Again, I want to especially thank the emergency response folks, your first responders, your law enforcement, your volunteers, everybody who's been working to try and keep your fellow neighbors safe. We know that we've got a widespread issue here. As you may have said, heard earlier rather, over 50 counties out of 93 have an emergency declaration. So this is widespread across the state. There's going to be a lot of work to be able to pull everything together here. The big key is, first of all, right now we want to make sure everybody stays safe. So as Senator Gragert was saying, if you see something like water over the road, don't go there. Don't cross any water on a road. Don't go any place where you think it's going to be dangerous, because we want to focus on keeping people safe to begin with. Again, you can go to 511 to get the update on the roads. With regard to the recovery phase, we're working on the emergency declaration with the federal government. We will be working on that. We're drafting it right now, but we've got to do the assessments to be able to turn that into the federal government. But again, between Senator Sasse and myself and the rest of the federal delegation, we will continue to put pressure on the federal government to respond as quickly as possible to our needs. We know that there's going to be a lot of work all across the state to be able to do that. Right now, you know, you've got your state emergency operations center is open 24 hours a day to take in the information with regard to the safety aspect. And then we'll be, you know, those folks are very focused right now, where we still have people in danger right now. We still have people in isolated communities right now that we've got to take care of. We will move to the recovery phase as we start getting this water out of our state. We can start making sure everybody's safe, and then we can start working on how we can actually develop the assessments so we know how to fix the infrastructure, whether it's the roads or bridges, water lines, all that. The key is, again, just make sure that you're communicating up to your local emergency managers so that we know at the state to be able to provide those resources. And again, I just want to say thank you all again for you know, all that you're doing to help out your neighbors. It's really where the spirit of Nebraska comes out, is all the work that you're doing to help make sure we take care of people in the community. So we really appreciate that. And you know, this is going to be a long road, but we're all going to be in it together. So thanks.
Okay, is Jeff, you around, Jeff? I think it's my van driver. Doug, you got it? There's Jeff out there? Jeff's in the van. Okay. What do you want to do next? People want to eat, or we want to finish up the meeting? I got Rich Kenny. Let's address the water update. Rich Koenig. I don't know where Bruce is at. I'm sure he's working his tail off. Let's bring Rich Koenig. He can give us an update, kind of where we're at on the water and safety and issues, stuff like that. So.
Okay, I'm going to try and give you a quick brief update on what's going on. I've been in contact with Bruce consistently since Wednesday, and basically your system has went completely dry. The process when a system goes completely dry, we attempt to get it reestablished, what we call wetted up in the industry. That process is ongoing right now. Bruce has went above and beyond the call of duty on everything he's done here. He lined up a portable generator. We've got power established to one of your two wells. That well is currently pumping water to the system. It is slowly filling the system. As it's filling, they're finding breaks. They're working with them. That's part of the reason